please like our video and subscribe to RotoWire. Then go to rotowire.com/pod for a free 10-day trial.
Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. I'm Clay Link here with Todd Zola, the first Friday pod of the year. Todd, great to be talking with you. This should be fun. Of course, we have been talking on MLB Network Radio every Saturday, but the podcast is just starting back up. The first Friday one of the year. We're now on YouTube, and you can check us out there if you want to throw us up.
I wasn't consulted. I wasn't consulted with that. Were you?
No, I didn't have much of a say.
Yeah. I mean, the good-looking hosts probably had a bigger vote than we did. So
yeah, anyway. I'm going to try to clean my appearance up in future weeks. I don't think anybody really cares. But, we got plenty to talk about. You and I are in a draft right now. Really a star-studded group of fantasy players here. And it's as you described, a go get your guys type of draft. Guys getting jumped up. And you did a little bit of that. But any general things you're seeing aside from a pretty aggressive room?
Yeah, I mentioned, I think there is some of that go get your guys stuff. I love this draft because it's not an NFBC. A lot of the people in here play NFBC, but not everybody does, so they adhere less to the NFBC ADP. Yep. And I kind of like that. It's kind of, if you like a guy, you just have to get him because you can't trust that he'll be there when you think he will because – in an NFBC draft, I'm not saying they're all lemmings, but they use the ADP as a tool more than the people in this draft. You're always curious how pitching's going to go in a league of this nature, and we learned right away that it's going to be the same. Pitching is going to be a lot of yellow, as we say in the second round. We should say maybe we'll both tweet it out on our links on our Twitter feed. But the first 10 rounds are posted for public consumption, and there's some nice chatter going on the Greg Ambrosius's feed. But be welcome to ask questions to any of us, etc. Good stuff. But no, it's I don't have a feel yet. I'm not in a groove, and I'm not fighting myself. I'm kind of still just picking. This is the first foray for me into the 50-team draft and hold. I don't know about 50 round. Yeah, 50 team, imagine. 50 round. I don't think I would change a whole lot of my plan, at least early on in the first 15 or so rounds. It may change later. So I can't say that I would have drafted differently if this was the main event. I'd probably have the same team. But it's interesting because I usually have done a couple of draft and holds by this point. And I usually do a couple more magazine mocks to this point. I don't have I haven't battle tested my rankings as much as I usually have.
That's what I'm trying to do right now is just battle test and make changes on the fly. I have my rankings up in a separate tab. So when I passed on Jorge Soler for Jared Kelenic, I made that switch. But yeah, the yellow brick road there in the second round, as Derek Van Riper described it. Just a huge run on pitching. I'll just list those off. Of course, the big three went in the first round on the pitching side. Then Aaron Nola, Trevor Bauer, Walker Buehler, Yu Darvish, Brandon Woodruff, Luis Castillo, Max Scherzer, Clayton Kershaw, Jack Flaherty, all in the second round. Then Zach Gallen, Corbin Burns, early third. So huge pitching run. I was a little surprised that Adalberto Mondesi fell to me in the second. That's not something I'd expect to see in a NFBC draft where there's an overall component. I think obviously the steals get pushed up then, but
wait, you missed a second round pitcher.
Who did I miss?
You missed Lucas Giolito, my guy.
I just skipped over your guy. I'm sorry.
I thought you were going to ask me about it. Yeah, so I'm just being silly.
No,
but
that's. I'm glad you pointed that out because I did totally just jump over it. I still would be pretty happy to get Mondesi here, even in a standalone league that like this is. But yeah, in those leagues without that overall component, I thought it was interesting that Mondesi slipped. Let's get to Giolito though, Todd. What was your thinking for him over a guy like Luis Castillo and Scherzer, who I know you still like even at 36?
Yeah, I know that he had the soft competition, but he's still a good pitcher. And the transitions he made going from, make sure I get the years right, 2018 to 2019, I thought they were mixing up his repertoire, throwing with the ball with more spin. Were gains he managed to keep last year. Any of these mostly algebraic, formulaic projection systems are going to bake in. Remember, he was the worst pitcher in 2017, right? Wasn't he the worst qualified starter?
The worst qualified starter.
So systems that still bake that year in, he's going to be dragged down. And right now, I mean, I know that we've got our RotoWire stuffs out, Baseball HQ, but people still go to the free systems, the free projections over on Fangraphs. And a guy like Giolito, I haven't looked, but I'll bet he's hurt by that. I said he's a new guy. I'm very formulaic, but I said, he's a new guy. I'm taking 2018 or 17, I'm taking those out of it, or at least I'm really, really downgrading them. I actually wanted Darvish at that point, but I just had him ranked a little bit higher, and I'm a believer in the he made some changes too. But I'm not at all upset getting Lucas Giolito over there. But go into your Mondesi for a second. When you drafted Soto, if I had drafted Soto fourth, in my head I would have said, gosh, it sure would have been nice if I could have gotten Mondesi in the second, but that'll never happen.
Exactly. I was shocked because obviously with Mondesi, you'd expect some batting average drag, not a guarantee, but getting a guy like Soto to make up for it. And then Realmuto, I was pretty happy with that.
Yeah, Bo Bichette went to Greg Ambrosius, who runs the league for us, and probably uses the ADP more than anybody else because it's his ADP, right? Mm-hmm. It's the FPC ADP. I mean, if you want a shortstop with steals at that point, to me, you take Mondesi there. But I'll bet you the Bichette's ADP is. I bet Bichette's ADP is. I bet Greg thought he got him at a bargain because I'll bet Bichette's ADP is probably in the high teens.
I think it might be creeping up there, and I know Greg likes Bo Bichette. I do too, and he's probably a better. Sure. I don't think it's going out on a big limb to say he's a better hitter, but Mondesi really turned it on after a miserable first few weeks and won people some championships. And I just think, the amount he can move the needle is just so great that I think he was the choice pretty easily for me there in the second round. Really good stuff here, Todd. You also went with Anthony Rendon, Eloy Jimenez, Kyle Hendricks. Zach Wheeler pick I thought was interesting given some of the other names on the board. I went with Julio Urias at the next turn. Wheeler really did have a pretty nice year. Of course, a lot of people expected him to miss some time. That never happened, so that was a big windfall. But the K rate dipped a little bit, right?
Yeah, now people actually can see me now. They see me doing things. I'm making sure when I start naming names that I'm getting the players picked after them, not before them. So I'm figuring out the order. Yes, his K rate dropped, and this is one of those. This is what happened. We're not sure it's going to happen again, sort of things. But he switched up his repertoire and induced more ground balls, and traded contact for swinging strikes or strikes in general. Whether or not he keeps this gain or whether it was just kind of what he wanted to do against the geographical eastern zone at the time remains to be seen. But so now I can the picks I would have taken instead. I mean, Framber Valdez, Ian Anderson, you mentioned Julio Urias. These are all riskier guys. Even if it's the Wheeler, the better ratio, lower strikeout Wheeler, I'm okay with that. I wanted my first three pitchers. Was it 1,000 innings? I think it's not gonna be hard to get 1,000 innings, but you have to, in a DC format, you kind of have to think about it. Mm-hmm. A couple injuries here and there, and you're gonna be pushing the limit. You usually get 1,400, 1,500 innings. So even with the way MLB now is treating their starters, you should make 1,000. Unless you get hurt. So I don't know that I'm going to get 600 innings for my first three, but I wanted 550 maybe, somewhere around there. So innings were as important. Now Valdez, great upside. Urias, you took, again, great upside, but even with Kershaw, I don't know that how many innings can you actually project? So
maybe a 6-man, maybe a lot of juggling there.
Yeah, so we'll talk about it later, but taking Wheeler hurt my standings at the time because the ratio is a little higher than some of the guys later. But I'm about team construction at that point, and I wanted the innings. And he'll get some strikeout. It's not as if he doesn't strike anybody out. And who knows? He may actually tweak the repertoire a little more. Realmuto's back. I didn't know it at the time. Realmuto's back. Maybe he figures out a way to combine ground balls with getting more strikeouts, switching up the repertoire even more. Who knows?
Yeah, I probably just don't give Zach Wheeler enough credit. He's been really pretty consistent, dropping K rate last year aside. I mean, 182 and a third, 195 and a third, 71, which is a really good total from last year. And the performance within a pretty narrow band, too. Like, he's not a ace-level performer, but a pretty good pitcher. And, yeah, safer than some of those other arms I mentioned for sure. You went with Paul Goldschmidt, Tommy Edman. Goldschmidt, I was reading the forecaster box, and they're pretty optimistic about his power. Not something I'm really catching, or I'm not really counting on with Paul Goldschmidt, but you still think there's enough there in the 8th round to where even if the power is, modest, he'll do enough with a high average and counting stats to be a really nice player.
Yeah, it doesn't. I like more category juice. Hat tip to Scott Pianowski, who won our retro draft last night. Hat tip to Scott for that as well. But yeah, I still believe in Goldschmidt. I know the forecaster in their upside it said 40 homers, and as James Anderson, our colleague, joked on the radio earlier today. Yeah, it's how can you give an upside to something you've never done before, So
At what age? 32 or
yeah,
something?
I'll take if he can hit his age in homers, I'll be pleased. If he hits 28, I'll be pleased. Mm-hmm. It's my age and I win the league. But anyway, so yeah, I mean,
he's 33 but now.
Yeah, Rizzo was still on the board. I didn't want to wait too long for a first baseman, and I was looking at Dominic Smith, who Jeff Erickson took the pick before. So it wasn't. Was that the first time? It wasn't the first, and I don't think it'll be the last time that Jeff has sniped me. And one good thing about drafting next to DVR is we kind of planned things differently. So I don't think I've been sniped by DVR yet, but Jeff certainly got me at least once. I can now see twice, and I'm sure it'll happen again.
Yeah, this really is Snipe City with nobody really handcuffed to ADP, just getting their guys, and it's a lot of fun and informational because you want to know just the extent that some of these guys are going to get jumped come March, and this at least gives you an early idea of maybe what you'll have to pay in drafts come March. I want to move on to some news, not just talk about our league, the whole draft, but first, a quick word from our friends over at Monkey Knife Fight. Now that your season-long fantasy basketball and fantasy hockey leagues have started, this is a great time to check out our friends at Monkey Knife Fight, the fastest-growing site in daily fantasy. The NHL and NBA are in full swing, and NFL playoffs are here. Time is now to take advantage of a 100% instant match up to $50 on your first deposit by using the promo code RotoWire. Visit monkeyknifefight.com and use promo code ROTOWIRE today. Quite a few dominoes falling, Todd, this week. I'm glad, we're still putting the finishing touches on the mag. We were hoping to, maybe get some information on the DH, when the season's going to start. That'd be kind of nice to know. Spring training, we're hoping to get some more information. And I'm glad that we did because we're able to edit outlooks to account for this most recent information. But quite a few of the remaining free agents signed, not all of them, but JT Realmuto, a big domino falling back to the Phillies, so no real change in context, nothing we really have to talk about as far as a new situation with him. But I saw our friend Derek Carty talking about how, as good as Realmuto is, and his numbers get a scarcity bump in 2-catcher leagues, a third rounder, maybe even a late second rounder in some leagues, he's just not really worth that. Not because he's not, the stats aren't really worth it, quote unquote, in a vacuum, but the fact that, team building, it kind of puts you at a disadvantage and kind of boxes you into a corner.
No, I agree. Format matters, and I think in a best ball, I'm all over him. And in the draft and hold, I'm more likely to draft him than I am otherwise, depending upon my first two picks and what I think I can get in the fourth round. So it kind of helps to be close to a wheel when to do that either end. If he lasts to the back end of the third round, you're probably going to take him. But no, I agree. And there's fewer catchers if you like drafting good catchers, there's fewer catchers that fit that bill. But to me, there is still one, and I think Dereck even tweeted about it too, if I'm not mistaken. But Will Smith, to me, if he gets Realmuto's playing time, he's a better fantasy player. We just can't you can't ensure that he's going to play as much as Realmuto is. Realmuto is good, but he's a compiler at catcher, which is weird because usually you don't get enough at bats to compile, as it were. A compiler, I consider somebody whose skills are good but not great. They don't pop, but they pound up the counting stats because of volume. Nick Markakis, sort of the classic compiler a few years ago, and they always drop in drafts because they don't have anything that pops. They just do everything really well. Andrew Benintendi is a compiler. Now he's got other issues right now. Is he going to be able to compile? But that's a story for another day.
Yeah, very true. Will Smith, when you said that, I mean, I've heard that before. Like, if the playing time were equal, maybe Smith's the number one. I get it. He was just out of this world last year. 289, 401, 579, and throughout the postseason, when Austin Barnes would catch, they'd have Will Smith as the DH. So the universal DH really, there may be nobody it impacts more than Will Smith.
Well, I think it could be, maybe not this year for Realmuto, but with that long contract, I think Philly would sure like to have a designated hitter in their lineup, towards the back end of that contract. That's a pretty hefty number of years for a catcher who's had a lot of squatting on those legs, and he's not the biggest guy. So, Kurt Suzuki managed to do it. So maybe I'm a little overblown as far as if it's a big guy, we'd be saying, actually you can make a narrative goes both ways, right? The big guy would be harder, but the little guy.
Sal Perez though.
Yeah, so maybe exactly. So maybe that's not a problem at all as far as that goes. But you just think with the bigger body absorbs a lot more punishment, or you think it can. But on the other hand, too big a body gives you too much punishment. So maybe Realmuto, is exactly the right size. I don't know, but and Andrew Knapp isn't a terrible backup. So if you need to use Realmuto elsewhere, if there is a DH. The Phillies covered.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I mentioned, maybe Will Smith the most affected by the DH, probably like Dominic Smith, another one. And you and I both assuming there will be a universal DH, but I think if there isn't, obviously Will Smith takes a pretty big hit. The seventh round in a 2-catcher 15-team league, that's a pretty nice price on Will Smith there. Other big piece of news this week, Todd. Marcus Semien signing with Toronto, only a 1-year deal. He took the 1-year, $18 million deal. James and I were talking on the radio today about having a little service for James's Rowdy Tellez shares, having a little candlelight vigil for those. But it's not necessarily a given that Tellez is the one who loses out. I mean, you have to project him to lose out on some at bats, but maybe it's Randall Grichuk, maybe Teoscar Hernandez slips a little and he loses some time. I think it's very much questionable. Would you say Tellez is the clear loser here, or is it? Do you think maybe Tellez could end up playing quite a bit anyway?
I don't know that the other end of it, and this. You don't want to hear this now, folks, but it's kind of the truth. These things work themselves out. Springer's not playing 162 games, right? Lourdes Gurriel has had some issues with injuries. So more than likely, they're all going to get playing time. But right now, I just can't tell you who's going to get hurt, right? But
it doesn't help anybody say it'll work itself out, but you just got to have faith sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I still have to put the numbers down. I mean, have I made the move yet? Yeah, I have him in there. So I've got Springer for 85% of the playing time, which is pretty much full time. Tellez 71%, which is a full amount for a left-handed platoon.
Yep.
So I'm not docking him anything. Gurriel 85. Grichuk I still have up there in the 85 to 90%. So it works. There are enough. Oh, you know what though? I may have Vlad at third here. So I'm going to have to readjust.
That's a big thing because
I haven't moved Vlad back to third yet because you're right. I have not added in Semien. I was on the process of doing that right now. So all right. So forget everything I just said. Just took it all back.
You're good.
Who am I going to take? Who am I going to take it away from? If Semien's getting 90%, I got to find 90% playing time to take away. Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, that is a lot.
And
again, they can shuffle some things around. Maybe they make a trade, but somebody's got to lose out here.
Yeah, well, I have Dereck Fisher for 35%, so I can find 25% right there.
Yeah,
I got Jonathan Davis for 15, so I can find some more playing time there. So that's what it also does too, is it takes away from some of the lesser players. Tyler White, who they kind of picked up as a flyer, and maybe he gets released at this point, right?
Yeah, I would think
he's
so.
He's probably an NRI, so he probably gets released. Maybe they use one of their catchers less. So I probably have to find 50 to 60%. So Gritch's gonna lose some. Tellez will lose some. I do have Austin Martin for 10. Whether or not, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll over project, like in the prospects amount. I just leave in there because you just don't know. I've got Brajic Valera for 15%. So there's some wiggle room that I think that. Gritchick a little bit and Tellez a little bit. I'm already kind of hedging Gurriel enough with 85%, but Tellez to me was mixed league worthy. At this point, he is not. Gritchick is kind of borderline, although I'm going to say he's not either.
I could see that. And as a fifth outfielder, I could maybe see it, but I'm not. If he's my fifth outfielder in the league, I'm not really loving it.
I want him on. I want to take a chance on my fifth outfielder, and then I want him as my first reserve.
I like that. Like a
something like that.
Kirilloff.
Yeah. Well, if you're in the league, he's the third outfielder. I'm talking more realistic here, friend.
I think he's my fifth in both leagues. But no, I've been getting a little too aggressive there.
It's Kalenic, right? You just took Kalenic
Yes, I did take him in this one.
Yeah.
I know anybody who listened to the RotoWire Prospect Pod on Wednesday, I was saying I was getting priced out, but then, of course, I took him in the 13th.
Well, you set the price.
In the other drafts I'd done, there's just somebody else in the draft room who liked him a little more, and I was, filling out my staff or getting a closer or something, and I missed out. But here, 13th round for a guy like Kelenic, I think is totally fair. I will have to plug in a reserve for a couple weeks, and I think in a regular NFBC, NFBC with 7 bench spots, I'm less inclined. But here with 26 bench spots, it's not hurting me to stash Jared Kelenic. Todd, Andrelton Simmons to Minnesota on a 1-year, $10.5 million deal. Do you think the biggest impact with this move is on the Minnesota pitching staff?
I think so. I mean, Simmons is nice. He's a reserve. He's only eligible at one position. So someone like that at the end, you kind of hope they're eligible at a couple different positions. He's solid, but yeah, he's going to help that pitching staff. And I know there's not an extreme ground ball pitcher on that staff, but who cares? Mm-hmm. Just the confidence that he's back there, and if it's hit on the ground to the left side, it's an out. So you've talked about Kenta Maeda a little bit. I'm waiting for the Jose Barrios breakout. I can't point to the number. I can't point to StatCast and say, there it is.
Right.
It's just a feel thing. This can't hurt. If anything else, maybe he stays in the windup more because it's a few more ground balls are now out. So I like the Barrios scenario a little bit. And it should help the back end of their staff as well. And maybe it helps Taylor Rogers and some other relievers. You mentioned Duffy's your guy, so I'll let you talk about him, but I think it's going to help everybody.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not my guy necessarily. I do like Tyler.
Well, you were on him. And I think
he's like my number 4 closer in waiting, I think.
Yeah, right.
Maybe 3. Right. And I do like him, but yeah, certainly not the only one. A lot of people are on Tyler Duffy. And good reason. Good reason. He's pretty impressive. And now, of course, Trevor May no longer there, so Duffy within striking distance. Certainly. I do kind of, like Simmons. When the Reds had Jose Iglesias, I loved watching that guy play short, and I was kind of hoping they'd bring in Simmons, even though he's a flat earther, I think. I was still kind of hoping they would sign him. Maybe Didi is in the cards. But Freddie Galvez, the Reds' old shortstop / second baseman, to Baltimore. Not really, I think for a mixed league, he's fringe, but AL only? Yeah, I'd probably think about grabbing Galvez in Baltimore.
Absolutely. AL only is going to play.
Yeah.
And that, and he's got a little bit of, he has just enough pop and just enough speed that, whether he has 10 homers and 10 steals, I don't know. But where you're going to get him in an auction at AL only or a draft, sure, absolutely. Sign me up. We have breaking news.
Oh, do we? What's that?
Daniel Murphy has retired.
Oh, yeah. Well, he had a pretty nice career, but I've never been a big fan.
No, well, I was for a couple of years.
I was a fan of the baseball skills.
Yeah, I was actually a fantasy fan because, he was in the launch angle revolution. But I don't know that he was blocking anybody for Colorado, but it does kind of free up maybe a little more from McMahon or Barnes. And it frees up for my Roddy Tellez to Colorado trade.
I would love to see that.
Which I'm just joking about. Yeah. Murphy, Murphy's one of those guys that, he's a good baseball player, and, good for him.
Yeah, he got his deal with the Rockies. It wasn't a great bookend to his career, but he made his money, and good for him. Good career. Congrats on a good one, Daniel Murphy. Another piece of news from today, Jock Peterson to the Cubs. Now, look, for standard roto, that batting average hurts him a lot. A platoon guy, I don't know. He just kind of gets lost in that glut of outfielders and interchangeable low average power guys. Again, platoon with the Los Angeles Dodgers, but do you think with the Cubs, who seem to be in a transition period, maybe Jock gets one last chance to show that he could be more than a platoon bat?
Well, to paraphrase James Anderson, don't you have to have a chance in order to be a last chance? Have the Dodgers?
That's true. Yeah, he never really got a chance to be more. Even as a highly touted prospect, he was always platooned.
Yeah, he ran more, but no. I'm interested. The power's interesting. If you can absorb the batting average, go for it. The walk rate should help. They've got David Bodie and Phillip Ervin as possible platoon partners. So it may be one of those scenarios where the Cubs let him hit against left-handed pitching in the spring. And if he shows he's capable, even if he draws enough walks against them, and that helps fantasy-wise just because it softens the batting average blow, fewer at-bats, then maybe they want him full-time. But, you've got David Bodie, and, maybe they have plans for Bodie on the infield. I don't know. But
maybe a Chris Bryant spot.
Yeah, exactly. But that, they came out and said it, and Jason Hayward is already kind of a platoon guy, but Ian Happ is now the guy in center field. I'm sure his name will come up at some point. I think he's kind of a quiet, good player to look for in fantasy this year.
Yeah.
But so at this point, it's hard to say. And looking at the lineup, Peterson could hit near the top. Really could.
That Cubs order is going to be weird to see.
It's not good. I'm looking at our depth chart. It's not good, and that's why people can see me looking now. This is my it's not good face. This is my Cubs lineup. It's not good face.
And they could be down Bryant. Maybe they're down a couple other bats they've had.
Yeah.
I do kind of expect Bryant to be moved. Maybe not before the season, but probably in season. We'll see. Of course, final year of his deal. I think they'd probably like the team to take a lot of the money owed to him. So we shall see. Of course, the other rumor, this isn't a news piece, but the rumor with Arenado maybe moving. We'll just have to wait and see, play the waiting game on that. But the Cardinals seem to be making a pretty aggressive push. A real quick note from our friends at BetMGM. Sports bettors know that magic happens when you turn a hunch into action and apply the right amount of expertise. That's why BetMGM has teamed up with RotoWire to offer new BetMGM customers. I'm just going to restart this, Todd. Sports bettors know that magic happens when you turn a hunch into action and apply the right amount of expertise. That's why BetMGM has teamed up with RotoWire to offer the new BetMGM customers a free 6-month RotoWire subscription when they place their first bet. Register on BetMGM app or the website and use promo code ROTO, that's ROTO, to claim your free subscription. Once you make your first sports wager, you'll receive a season's-length RotoWire subscription with our unmatched sports insights. Find out why BetMGM is the king of sportsbooks by signing up and placing your first bet today. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. 21 years of age or older to wager. Colorado, Indiana, Iowa, and New Jersey only. Please gamble responsibly. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700 in Colorado and Nevada, and 1-800-GAMBLER in New Jersey and West Virginia. In Tennessee, call or text the Red Line at 800-889-9789. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-9-WITH-IT in Indiana. Promotional offer not available in Nevada. So, Todd, one other pick to circle back to this AFL draft we're doing, and I asked you about this on your spot on the radio, so I hope you're not sick of me asking you about Adam Ottavino. But I thought this was a really interesting pick because this was definitely a get-your-guy pick here. 12th round. I don't know exactly what his ADP is. I have it up here, so let me look at what it is. Adam Ottavino's overall ADP is 722.62. And, again, you took him in the 12th, but that overall ADP really isn't reflective of where he's going to be going in subsequent drafts.
Right, because it was obviously after the trade. So let's look. Let's see. We've got Rafael Montero went to Vlad in the 11th, so doing that. Richard Rodriguez, who should be the Pirates closer, right?
But, I mean, they're selling off everybody.
Right.
Who's to say he's going to still be with the team?
Well, that's true. But the next pick we got Devin Williams, who is obviously Milwaukee's jack of all trades. The next pick was Drew Pomeranz. So we're into the speculative closer range.
Yeah. So
now it's ADP aside, draft the pitcher, not the round. If this is where speculative closers are going, Ottavino could go. And he was on my list. Will Smith was on my list. Trevor Rosenthal, if he had a job, maybe he would have been a better pick. But there's also some volume involved with Ottavino where I know he's going to throw innings. So it was more of I have Ottavino in mind and I have Will Smith in mind. I can't use the ADP with Ottavino because it's just it's not reflective of his current role. Will Smith, I don't remember what the ADP was, but I felt, you know what? I think I could get them both if I take Ottavino first. Red Sox fan, it's not a secret. I don't know that he's going to close. I do think he will be given the opportunity, and Matt Barnes is all right, but he's got control issues. He's got command and control issues, home runs and walks. And you can live with one of those two issues as a closer. You really don't want both. So and he strikes guys out, Barnes. So we'll see. I'm curious. I think Pomeranz, Ottavino, Will Smith, Archie Bradley, who you ended up with, maybe relative to where you drafted him, you may have gotten the best deal out of any of those guys because I think they're all in the same boat, and your boat shipped in the 14th round where ours shipped in the 11th and 12th round.
It's so hard to draft closers right now with Rosenthal and Colomé and just so few guys having a firm hold, a clear hold of the ninth. And our friends and colleagues here at RotoWire, Jeff Erickson and Scott Genstad, were talking on the Sunday show about, on our closer grid, we have, I think, 6 closers with high or better job security. It's just so hard. And right now is the time to be speculating on guys. But, some of these guys drafted as closers may not actually be. And meanwhile, like, conversely, with a guy like Ottavino, not really treated as a closer right now, but they're paying him quite a bit of money. And I have to feel like this is a reclamation project after Ottavino had a 5.89 ERA. We know he's a lot better than that. I mean, the guy's got 30% K rate the past few years. He does have some issues with walks, but I feel like they're bringing Ottavino in with clear intention to trading him, and what better way to build up a guy's trade value than putting him in the ninth?
Yeah, and who's to say that the guy who drafted Ottavino doesn't try to get Matt Barnes later and covers the Red Sox 5 victories over the last 2 months. So we should have a little jar, and every time one of us or anytime we hear flip him at the deadline, we throw like $1 in the jar.
Yeah, we should have one of those. Like it's like a swear jar because really, I need to stop cut back on it.
Well, we'll knock on wood at the Arizona Fall League this year. We'll have a couple dinners based on flipped at the deadline already paid for.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good idea. Kind of like that. By the way, Todd, I'm kind of wondering. I don't want you to have to give away too many of your subsequent picks. You mentioned you probably try to get Matt Barnes paired up with Adam Ottavino, but do you have any favorite spec closers? Again, I'm not asking you to reveal all your secrets here, but do you have any guys that you're targeting late for saves who may be flying under the radar a little bit?
I don't know if it's Trevor May's on my list, and again, I'm looking at guys that I'm going to use anyway, and the Mets did not sign Brad Hand, right? So that right now, May is kind of the next in line there after Edwin Diaz. So he definitely has to be someone that I'm looking for. Who's next on the Yankees? Is it Britton? Yeah.
Britton.
I mean, you just never know with Chapman. What, he's going to miss the first 3 games or something, and or maybe he missed the first 3 games this year. I'm confused, but
he missed a little time, and Britton stepped in.
Yeah. So he sick as well. I don't really see anybody. We talked about Rodriguez on Pittsburgh. I don't see anybody there. Miami's a tough one to handicap. I mean, Yimi Garcia. Yeah, who knows? This is my Yimi Garcia face. If you're not on,
I kind of like Yimi, but I don't think he's going to be the closer.
True. Yeah, that's true. You know who I did like, and we've talked so much. I forget if it was on this podcast or elsewhere. I was a big Tanner, still am a big Tanner Rainey fan, but with Hand there, I don't see Rainey. I mean, maybe in the future, but I'm not as high this year on him coming through and being the closer. Kirby Yates now with Toronto. Yeah.
Just because I know some people are concerned with Hand, including Jeff Erickson.
Yeah.
He was pretty darn good. He did lose some velo, though.
Yeah. Another guy, I forget where Nick Anderson went, but again, Toronto, Tampa, who knows? Peter Fairbanks is somebody that the Rays relied on in the playoffs, or they trusted in the playoffs.
Yep.
So it wouldn't surprise me, and he gets the strikeout. So Peter Fairbanks could be someone that I have some interest in there. So yeah, there's enough names to snipe me from.
Yeah, I'm absolutely with you. On our site, we have closers in waiting, which I manage, and we still have the free agents, Colomé and Melanson and Rosenthal, but mostly these are setup men, and really the only qualification is that they're not listed as the primary closer. So I actually have Nick Anderson there just because of the way he finished, the fact that they did turn to Fairbanks, they did turn to Diego Castillo, and Nick Anderson just didn't look great. So I actually have him as a closer in waiting and not listed as the Tampa Bay closer. A couple of guys I like, and actually I jumped one of these guys like 130 spots above ADP, and people were just not happy with me. But J.B. Wendelken.
I left him for you.
Thank you, because we did talk about him on the MLB Network radio show.
Yeah, I have him
no
looking
idea
at his right now.
No idea who's going to be the Oakland closer, but they have a history of churning at that spot. Of course, Doolittle. Who else am I forgetting there? Aside from Liam Hendricks, but
Houston Street. Oh wait, never mind.
Yeah, but there was one in the middle. It should be obvious. I'm forgetting it, but they have a history of kind of letting these guys build up value and then not bringing them back. Trinan. That's who it was. Thank you. I really should have known that because he was the best closer in all of baseball that year. But yeah, they have a history of not bringing guys in and kind of just building up that next closer. And while Jake Diekman is pretty good, I mean, very good. He's a lefty with, 6 career saves, something like that. So I just feel like maybe a righty. Maybe they bring in Joaquim Soria. Maybe it's somebody else, maybe Lou Trevino. But I look at Wendelken, and I see quite a bit alike.
No, I agree. And you're kind of been pounding that barrel, so I decided to let you. I didn't want to take all
thanks,
the.
Yeah,
all
that
the
is
guys,
kind of where I was going with this.
And I am. I did grab him in a couple. Did I? Yeah, I think I did. I wrote about a couple drafts, so he may be listed as in the latest RotoWire piece I put up. I kind of listed a couple teams just for to show the graphing a draft, and I think I got him in one of those leagues. But anyway, so I heeded your advice, my friend.
Well, I hope it works out, and I hope you don't hold it against me when it probably doesn't. His slider, his fastball is like upper 90s, but 94.6 per hour on the four-seam fastball. The slider held opponents to a 125 batting average, 178 XBA. I don't know. Things look pretty good for Wendelken, and again, totally speculative, but I do kind of like him as a guy to get late who could get you some saves. I also like Gregory Soto. James is trying to get on me to just leave this Detroit bullpen alone, which is probably the better advice. I do kind of like Soto and what I saw highlights in the Dominican League. Who knows? I just think that with A.J. Hinch coming in, he's going to have no allegiance to Brian Garcia, so I expect it to be a wide-open battle. Todd, do you have a pick in that Detroit bullpen, or are you like James where you're just hands-off?
I say that, but remember Jimenez had 15 saves a couple years ago early. I'm looking. I got Wendelken in the 16th round of a draft. So I'm all over that. 1 round ahead of Drew Pomeranz and 1 round ahead of Trevor May. But yeah, Detroit, man, that is going to be a bad team, and I know they will get some saves. I like their starting pitching. I like where it's going, but all right. So people can see me looking off to the side. I'm looking to see who I have. Detroit's. If you're not getting YouTube, you're going to now because of all these,
we're forcing you to that medium.
Yeah, I have Brian Garcia as the lead closer, but you're talking about speculative guys. So I think Soto to me is a speculative buy, but I don't know. Who do you want in that?
And that's true. I mean, Jose Cisnero maybe. But again, that's for pretty much only draft and hold and AL only.
Yeah. I mean, they picked up Jose Urena. Are they gonna convert him like Philly, Miami, like Miami talked about doing? Who knows?
Yeah, and finally, a closer-related question: Jordan Hicks, tentatively listed as our closer for St. Louis, questionable health though, very low job security. And then you have Giovanni Gallegos, Andrew Miller, Alex Reyes, Ryan Helsley. I mean, maybe Carlos Martinez. Who knows? I think it'd be best for him to stick in the bullpen.
Yeah, and it probably is up on the site at this point, but there was a note that it sounds like Yadier Molina is going to re-sign with the Cardinals once the wherever he's playing winter ball. Once that season's over, the rumor has it he's signing back with the Cardinals.
Nice, that's good to know. I expected that, but he was kind of threatening retirement, so he was kind of making them up their offer. Those Andrew Knizner draft and hold people are a little disappointed. Anything I forget. Oh, the other. I wanted to know who was your pick in St. Louis, if you had one.
I don't know. Primarily because, again, in the back of my mind, whoever I pick, I want to use as a. All right, who was my pick to get the most saves? It's probably Gallegos, but I'm not going to be drafting him because he doesn't get enough strikeouts. Yeah. Secondary to Hicks. The Hicks thing, I don't know the volume. Again, he's coming off surgery and 2 years off, et cetera. So they will use him, and I think he will be closing, but I don't think we're going to get 70 innings out of him. And so he's not a guy that is going to help as much in the ratios. And Gallegos just doesn't get the strikeouts. So, John Gant's there. You mentioned a bunch of guys. I'm more interested in taking a flyer on a couple of their starters, I think, than I am. They just re-signed Adam Wainwright. What that does for Austin Gomber, for instance, I don't know at this point. Ponce de Leon or Daniel Ponce de Leon, both guys were kind of nice, sneaky draft and hold picks. I don't know what it does for those guys at this point. It may be one or the other. We'll see. But you mentioned Carlos Martinez. You never know until March 1st what he's going to be doing once we figure out,
He's, I think, a free agent after this year, and I think it would be best for him and the team to just, before you hit free agency, you don't want another year where you're hurt and struggling as a starter. Hope he transitions back to the bullpen, and he was the guy down the stretch in 2019. It could very well be him again. I kind of hope they do sign a Rosenthal or a Colomé just so I don't have to speculate on these 5 Cardinal arms. We'll see. But, Todd, before we sign off today, I wanted to talk about your latest Z-Files, dissecting draft dynamics. Good stuff here from from you, Todd. If you do not have a subscription to RotoWire, by the way, you could check this out free, rotowire.com/pod for a free 10 days on us. No credit card required. I'm wondering if you could explain to us what got you down this path of dissecting draft dynamics.
Yeah, to me, this is informative, but it's not one of the one people aren't going to win their league because of this particular Z files. But I do kind of try to come up with some unique and original ways. Isn't that redundant? Unique and original, unique ways to approach things. So that's kind of what went on here. And I've talked a lot about category target drafting, and how while I'm against it, anything that puts your mind at ease, makes you feel better at the table is a good thing. So I'm never going to say don't do it, but just be aware of some of the pitfalls about trying to win the draft and not the league. So I thought it'd be kind of cool. And when I say this, I mean, I'm not crossing my fingers. I really mean this. I don't look at standings during the draft, even though I've got software that does it, and RotoWire software does it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But what I did is I what's the expression the kids use? Ran it back. I ran back a couple of drafts where I just took out the